All right, so listen up. Behind me is an Audi RS6 Avant Wagon, and today I'm going to review it by sharing my thoughts on whether if you should or shouldn't consider buying one. And given that I've already driven a Mercedes AMG E63 S-Wagon, also throw in some bits on how they compare. But before doing that, a big thank you to Porsche of downtown LA for giving me access to this RS6. If you happen to be interested in this car or anything else in their inventory, feel free to reach out to them using the information I've left in the description. Just don't forget to mention this video. Alternatively, you can reach out to me via Instagram at DriveSteady, and I'll make sure to put you in through somebody who can help you. Now, let's get on with the review of this RS6 Wagon, starting out by looking at its design. All right, so let's start it out by looking at the exterior design of the RS6 Wagon. So this one is painted in Nardo Gray, which is one of my favorite colors for this car. It suits it beautifully. It's subtle yet aggressive. Let me get up close here. It's kind of this lighter gray color, and pardon my shadow there, but it reminds me a lot of the color I have on my Shelby GT350 called Avalanche Gray. Very, very similar here, this Nardo gray color. Now, let's move on to the actual design aspects, and my favorite of a performance car as far as its visual enhancements are fender flares. And man, does this RS6 have them. Check this out. 3.2 inches wider compared to the regular Audi A6 all-road, and man, does this thing look very wide, low slung, and has a super aggressive look. And it's not really a gimmick, because Audi is really going all out with the body panels on this car. So for example, this front fascia is all new. It's not shared with any other car. Brand new body panel. The hood, completely new. Of course, the front and the rear fender flares are all independently brand new body parts for the RS6 Wagon. And the thing I love about these fender flares is that they're sculpted into the body. It's so interesting. I was driving on the way to review this thing, and I saw a Gen 1 Honda Civic Type R, and the fenders on that car seem like they're just like put on as an afterthought. But these are so nicely put in. Look at the hips from the back. Really menacing. And when you see this car rolling from the back, it is quite the sight. Very nice looking car. And to continue on with the new body panels, Audi even replaces these doors. So these rear doors are different, I think, in order to make sure that this part looks nice and flush here. And look how small of a gap there is between the fender flare and the actual door. And I think the end result of this car in terms of looks, it's absolutely gorgeous. I love the way it looks. Okay, next, the interior of the RS6 Wagon. And I'm not gonna go super in-depth here, because I did that for my A6 all-road review. And that car and this car's interior are very much similar, except I will highlight some of the things in here. Don't worry, you'll get a good feel of what it's like in here. And if you want to go more in depth, some more detail, I will link the A6 all-road review at the end of this video. You can watch that. Now, the biggest difference I can see in here are the seats, the materials, and some of the finishes. Starting out with the seat, it feels a little bit more aggressive, naturally, because this is the RS version. It holds you in a little bit tighter. I'm surprised that this doesn't have bolstering that adjusts. Maybe that was an additional option that whoever spec'd this car didn't go with, but nonetheless, this is a extremely comfortable seat, very similar to what I sat in the all-road Wagon. It's very nicely cushioned, something that would be a joy to sit in and drive on a daily basis, yet still have enough lateral support to hold you in when you're driving fast. It does have heated and cool seats. Even though this car doesn't have massaging capabilities checked, you can option that in to the RS6 Wagon. Now, The other item is there's some other carbon fiber here up on the dash that was missing in the all-road, and also there is a nice touch of red stitching on the seats and also on the door panels and also on the steering wheel. The steering wheel is a little different as well. So that is the differentiating sporty factor that kind of gives this a little cooler element. The overall quality in here is very similar to what I saw in the A6 Wagon, and that's very good. The quality is wonderful, nicely screwed together interior, no squeaks, no rattles, just a really high quality place, something that meets the expectation when you're getting into a luxury brand car, and of course the RS6 is no different. Next to technology, you've got 3 screens in here, one in front of you acting as gauges, one as an infotainment system screen, and finally the climate controls. Now, I personally like Audi's technology setup. I've actually come to like it. Originally, I wasn't a big fan of it. And the reason why I like it is because everything kind of is compartmentalized and has great functionality. The gauges in front of you are really nice and have a bunch of configuration. The infotainment software itself is really simple and nicely laid out. And the best part about it is the 3rd screen. So one of the things we're seeing is the reduction of buttons in interiors, which means that the climate control system can kind of get blended into the software or into the infotainment system. And in cars, that kind of gets muddled. You kind of have to switch screens for climate control and then for media and things like that. But in this Audi, it's got a dedicated screen. And in my opinion, if you're going to eliminate buttons and incorporate climate controls into a screen, having it dedicated is the next best thing. And I think Audi executes it really nicely here. And finally, in terms of size, nice cabin up front. I'll talk about the back here in just a second, but I'm 5'11". I fit in here just fine. I've got the seat in its lowest position. I would say somebody a couple inches taller than me, so like 6'2", 6'3", will probably fit in here just fine. Now, let's go to the back seats and see what's going on over there. All right, so now the back seat of the A6 or RS6 Wagon. So again, 5'11", I am sitting behind myself. You can see I have plenty of leg room here. There are extra cutouts on the back of the seats for that additional, what is that, maybe an inch or 2 of space. So somebody much taller than I am will not have an issue sitting back here. Now, some of the features, there is a privacy shade. It is manual. Then you've got 4-zone climate control in the back of the RS6. This is nice. Every person in each seating area can have their own temperature tailored to their liking. The overall seating position is nice. Equally comfortable seats in the back, as I mentioned, in the front. Then you've got this armrest here that drops down 2 cup holders and a very shallow storage area in the armrest. Now, in terms of size, I would say 3 adults can probably fit in here. It'll be a little bit of a squeeze. There is an elevated, I guess, floor here in the center section, so the person sitting in the center will have to kind of spread out their legs, but 3 children will fit in here just fine. In terms of charging, there are 2 USB Type-C ports, and there is also a 12-volt outlet in case you want to plug in a charging head to charge your laptop or whatever the case may be. So that's it for the interior. Now let me show you the trunk space and then we'll take this thing out on the road. All right, now one of the benefits of buying a wagon is the extra practicality you get in terms of cargo space. So this thing has plenty of it, 30 cubic feet when you have the seats folded up, and in excess of 55 cubic feet of space when you have the rear seats folded down. The nice thing about folding the rear seats down, you can do it directly from the back here without having to go inside the car. That's always a thing I pay attention to because it really just disrupts your loading pattern when you have to fold the rear seats down and then you got to go inside the car and come back, put things in. Anyways, now the surprising thing about the wagon storage capability, specifically this one, is that the RS6 and the all-road for that matter have the second most cargo space of any car that Audi makes, except for the Q7, their full-size SUV. So it has more space than the Q5, than the Q3, than the full-size A8, and even the sedan version of this car, the A6 sedan. So there you have it. Another reason why you should buy an RS6 wagon. You've got plenty of cargo space to go on a weekend getaway, to store your things on a daily basis. But something tells me that the driving dynamics are probably a little bit more enticing. So let's take this thing on the road and see what it feels like behind the wheel. All right, so now we're inside the Audi RS6 Wagon. Let me rattle off some specs for you. So 4-liter twin turbocharged V8 producing 591 horsepower and 590 pounds-feet of torque. It's putting power out through a 8-speed automatic transmission, and of course it's using Audi's Quattro all-wheel drive system. Now it does have a limited slip differential as well, and it rockets from 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds. Now, as far as its brakes go, this does have a steel and carbon ceramic option. The carbon ceramics, interesting fact here, they're the same ones that you would get in the Lamborghini Urus, and those are, I believe, 17.3-inch carbon ceramic rotors, and those are the largest front brakes you can get in any production car. So it's pretty astonishing that a wagon has the biggest brakes that you could get in any car. Of course, shares it with the Lamborghini Urus, but the steels that this car is equipped with are no short in size as far as the front brakes go. Now, there is an updated version of this car. This is a 2021 model year. I believe in 2023, Audi created the RS6 Performance, and it increased the boost and the power for that car so that it has 630 horsepower, I believe, and the same amount of torque, 630-ish, somewhere around that range. Maybe I'm a couple digits off, but if you want a little bit more power in your RS6 Wagon, you can go for the refreshed model, and I believe Audi did that to match what the Mercedes AMG E63 Wagon had in terms of power. So now let's go ahead and drive this car. And this car has been somewhat of a unicorn for me. I've had multiple opportunities to drive it, and every time, like a day before or a couple days before, like it was gone, and there went my opportunity. But finally, I've been able to now get seat time in this thing, and I'm very excited about it because I drove the Audi A6 All-Road Wagon, which is the regular version of this car, and I absolutely love that thing. So naturally, I was very excited about this, and also because I really like wagons. All right, now let's go ahead and configure our drive mode settings here. Audi makes it very simple, and also if you want, you can tailor it a little bit more, I guess, specifically. There's 3 modes that come right out of the box: Comfort, Auto, and Dynamic. And Dynamic is Audi's speak for sport. And then there's RS1 and RS2, very similar to what BMW does with the M modes. And in these modes, you have the ability to tune things a little bit more specifically: your steering, your suspension, your throttle response, your engine note, things like that, individually. And it makes it very easy because there's an RS1 button. You can click it and it puts you in these modes. But I'm just going to go with Dynamic for now and see what this thing is like. Yes, man, that thing is fast. Woo! Yes. Downshift. Very, very nice. Super fast car. Oh my God. I'm doing this in a wagon. Wow. Downshift snaps real nice. Oh yeah. Oh yes. And it revs to 7,000 RPM, and with that V8 note, it's very engaging to drive. Oh, sounds very raunchy, and I really like the way this thing sounds. Let's go. Oh yes, and it has the shift lights in the dash. This car, you can get it with a head-up display if I remember correctly, but this car is not equipped with it. That's neither here or there, but some people, they like to see the shift lights in the glass. Helps them make their shifts. But speaking of the shifts, so let me tell you about this transmission. It's really good. I like it a lot. It's not a double clutch, but it snaps off the shifts very, very fast. And during those shifts, it kind of gives you like a bark on the upshift, which makes it very, very engaging. Nice. And then when you drive it slow in the city, it just very predictable, nice, smooth, efficient shifts, very effortless. And it's a really smooth, nice suspension. Something that if you've driven a ZF automatic transmission from any of the German manufacturers or anybody that uses a ZF 8-speed automatic, you'll be familiar in here, and very well reputable, nice automatic transmission. Now, from a speed standpoint, this thing is every bit fast and pushes you back in your seat. And of course, the fact that this is a wagon and it's so fast kind of makes it so fun and mysterious and exciting. And one of the mystique features and compelling features of these wagons, and one of the reasons why I love them so much. Now, okay, so now let me tell you about the rest of this thing. Let me put it in comfort, and starting off with the brakes. So these are the steel brakes. They are good. They do lack in a little bit of the feel. So if you're expecting like a sports car brake, you're probably not going to get it. This feels like a regular car, but with a little bit of sport blended in. And in my opinion, that's not bad, because this is, after all, still a wagon. It's not a sports car. It is heavy. You do feel the weight, but it's not to say that the braking power in the steels is not adequate to match the speed or the horsepower figure of this car. So there is plenty of brake to get this thing stopped even with the steels. I would be interested to see what the carbon ceramics feel like. They actually feel wonderful in the Urus, but I would be interested to see what they feel like in this car. Now, braking out of the way, I talked to you about the transmission already. The steering is good. I prefer to just leave it in comfort, because in these dynamic or the sportier setting, it gets a little artificial. And considering that this is a wagon, people are going to drive them on a daily basis. Even when I configured the RS1 mode, I found myself leaving the steering in the comfort or the softer setting. Now, the most amazing part about this car, and the thing that I can compliment it the most in respect to the driving dynamics, is its suspension. And it's so amazing how Audi has been able to tune this thing. And the reason for that is I'm going to compare it to the Audi A6 All-Road Wagon. So when I drove the regular version of this, it was wonderful. It totally blew me away. I had that car for a week, and I enjoyed every single minute of driving it. For its purpose of being a regular Audi, it was wonderful. It was tuned excellently. It was tuned wonderfully. The suspension soaked up all the bumps. It was quiet. It was just such a dream to drive and to run errands and things like that. And this is an extension of that, with a little bit of, not a little bit, sportiness blended in. As I said about the steering, check the expectation. It does get stiff, the suspension does, but it's not stiff to a point where it feels like a sports car and you just can't drive it. Because there was a point I was driving it around here in the city, and I had it in dynamic mode, and I forgot that I was in dynamic mode. It was totally acceptable to drive around in this mode. Yes, it is a little firmer and hence a little bumpier when you drive over uneven pavements, but it's still totally acceptable. Now, the other side of that is comfort mode, and this is the most amazing part about it, because in dynamic mode, you're like, RS car should be a little stiffer and sportier. But when you're in comfort mode, this thing rides, I would say, equally as good as the Audi A6 All-Road Wagon, the regular one. So this air suspension is tuned so nicely that I'm willing to go out there and say that this car is probably the best dual nature character car I have ever driven. Because, like I said, it does sporty well, and at the same time, it does comfort extremely well for a RS car, a sporty car. And for the purposes I'm assuming people will buy this car is to maybe 90-95% of the time drive it in a daily driving situation. So the comfort setting in a sporty oriented car is magnitude and very important. So this thing does it wonderfully, and I'm going to repeat, it does it the best out of any car I have driven, period. Sedan, SUV, wagon, sports car. It's just a perfect balance of something that can do daily driving, and then you flip it, you put it in dynamic mode or in the RS1 mode, however you have it configured, and it'll just get your blood pumping, the exhaust opens up, and it gets a little stiffer, and it's just like this, it's perfect. For me, this car is a perfect car for an enthusiast to have as their only car. And it'll do everything, not everything, it does a lot of things to my preference. And in reality, I would just love to own one of these things, new, used, whatever the case may be. It's just a fantastic, fantastic car to drive in all of the settings I was able to test here in the city. So, to end the driving dynamics on that massive, massive compliment, now let's wrap it up with some final thoughts. All right, so that is the RS6 Wagon. Now, in terms of its driving characteristics, you just heard the praise I gave for it, so I'm just going to wrap this video up with an overall thought. Now, I don't care if this is an RS product or not. When you're buying a wagon, speed isn't really of the highest importance. Much like when you're buying a fast SUV, fast is the byproduct. When you're buying something like this or an SUV, you want practicality, you want bandwidth, something that has a wide one that can do a lot of things and a lot of things pretty well. Now, at the same time, you also have the ability to push a couple buttons and for it to push you back into your seat and to get your blood pumping. All at the same time, having the visual characteristics to make you turn around and look at it as you're walking away. Now, there are very few cars that can do this, and in my opinion, the RS6 is one of those cars, if not the best car, that can do all of those things and do them extremely well. I couldn't recommend this car more. You should buy one, go out and drive it for yourself, and I'm sure you will not be disappointed. Now, a reason you may or you shouldn't buy this car is you just don't like wagons, or you prefer the look of the Mercedes and the driving characteristics of that car compared to this car. Otherwise, I couldn't recommend it more. If I could, I would buy one for myself. So, if you're interested in watching the E63S video I have, I will probably link that here. If you're interested in the Audi A6 all-road video, I will probably link that right here. A big thank you again to Porsche of downtown LA. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Otherwise, thank you for watching this video. Until next time, drive steady.